Remember when you were a little kid and you went to school and you started to make friends, or you had to make friends and it was awkward, and your friends kind of became just who was next door, or your friend became who was somebody that sat next to you in school? It was really geography that determined whether you'd be friends or not. And your sample size wasn't a really big size. I mean, it was only like 30, 40 people that you had to choose from. And if you lived in a smaller town, it was probably even less. Maybe your friend became somebody that did the same interests or the same hobbies, or they lived on your street. But over time, we have to narrow down how we select our friends. See, in high school, we were in the same zip code typically. We went to the same school, so we became friends with people that were there. Most of us that were growing up didn't have access to the technology that some of the people do today. So today, maybe the young people could have friends in different places, but before technology, we had to learn how to interact and we had to deal with individuals. There was a big conversion that took place when we went from high school to college, or high school to the military, or high school to your working life. And then your friends became completely different. In fact, most of the people that were friends in high school were never friends again, because geography no longer determined your relationship, but now it became deeper. And so in this video, I want to talk to you a little bit about developing those relationships and getting deeper with people. Obviously, you have a relationship with God. You have a relationship with a person that you love. You have a relationship with family and friends. Then you have coworkers. And then you have people that maybe you're leading, or maybe you're running an organization, and you have all these relationships. And sometimes it could become a little bit convoluted, and it kind of like you don't know where to step up, and you don't know where to lead, and you don't want to offend people. So sometimes we avoid saying things. And then we end up in these relationships, and whether they're love-based relationships, whether it's friendship or a significant other, sometimes we end up being passive aggressive, or we end up wanting to avoid certain issues. Or you're dating somebody, or you're married to somebody, and you really don't want to talk about something specific because you know it's going to end up in a fight, or somebody's going to be upset. And then you hear somebody say, well, if you're really a friend, you should just say it. But then you think about saying something to your mom or your dad, or you say something to a coworker and you say, no, that's not going to land well. That's not going to be great. And so I want to give you some steps and some tips to help cultivate deeper relationships, more meaningful relationships, and have them last long term. And I'm going to give you one first with a sweetheart. I remember when my mentor told me, you need to read the book 101 Questions to Ask Before Getting Engaged. He said, you have a couple relationships in your life, and you said, I love you a couple times, but you know, you really got to have, this is a book that's going to help you get married, stay married, and be married for the rest of your life. And I remember, I don't want to get relationship advice. I don't want to hear any of that stuff. And especially us guys, you know, when somebody says, I have a book on relationships, I'm sure there's so many books out there that would help you in relationships, but maybe it's pride, maybe it's ego, maybe it's a lack of a willingness. Maybe you don't even want to put forth the effort that's necessary to being a great person in a relationship, so you don't even bother doing it. And you remember your first couple relationships in your life. Maybe it was physical attraction that draw you. Maybe it was convenience. Maybe it was, hey, I like you, you like me. Let's see if this makes sense. But I remember taking this book, 101 Questions to Ask Before Getting Engaged. And it's a simple book, really easy book. And I remember the first thing that I noticed is when I opened the book, there was no paragraphs. There was no details in the book. It was just a question, and then a blank page, and then a question, and a blank page. And I remember being attracted to it, one, because you didn't have to read a lot of details, but two, it must have really made a difference for this person to recommend this book to me. And it must have really worked for other people, or else, you know, why would they be saying this? So I took this time. I remember answering the questions. And the design is this, that if you were to answer questions that would come up in year 3, 5, 10, or beyond of a relationship, but you did it up front, before the emotional relationship was deep, before the commitments were made, before you're living together, before you're married, before you have children together, that this might be a good step for you to kind of know. First, you have to know yourself. If you don't know yourself, you can't be a great friend. You can't be a great boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife. You can't be a great son, you know, or daughter. You could be a person, you could do your best, but if you don't know yourself, you won't know how to deliver for another person, because it's like if you were to map something on your phone, or you put the address in. If you put an address into a map software, and you try to navigate yourself to that place, unless you put the blue dot first where you are, then it won't know how to give you the best directions on how to get there. And relationships are a lot like that. And so, anyways, answering these questions really helped me prepare for my marriage with my wife, because a few months later, I met my wife. And I'm not one that talks about love at first sight, although I never forget the first time that I saw my wife. And I don't know about love. I know there's attraction at first sight, but I think you have to get to know somebody to purely love them at a deeper level. Otherwise, it's just superficial. But I remember when we were dating and I said, I want you to take this book and I want you to answer these same questions. And I remember, I don't think anybody had ever said that to her before. And it was like, she was curious, she was intrigued, but it was like, okay, you want me to answer these questions? And I said, it's really important to me. I'm not looking to date to just have a girlfriend. I'm looking to date to get married. I want a wife. I'm looking for a long-term commitment, which is another aspect to having a relationship, which is, what's your intention? Do you just hang out with your guy friends because you like the same football team? Or do you really care about their development and care about their life? It's a different story. Whether it's a coworker or a significant other or a family member, if you're after the relationship for convenience, it's a different solve. But if you're after the convenience to have a deep, meaningful relationship, well, then you have to do a little bit more work and put in a little bit more effort. So she answered the questions. I answered the questions. I remember going to our first lunch and I pulled out a yellow piece of paper. And I remember putting the yellow piece of paper on the table at lunch. I'll never forget where I was. It was in Dallas on Beltline. I remember it was off Tollway. And I remember putting it there and she was like, okay, what's this? And I said, these are my 10 deal breakers. And I remember feeling so proud of myself for having these deal breakers manufactured, done on paper. And I really spent time. Obviously, we joke and we have fun with this subject, but I really spent time on this. And she goes, deal breakers, what does that mean? And the ladies that are watching this right now, you may be like, oh, you think you could just do this? Hold on, wait for the rest of the story, okay? I said, these are the 10 things that need to be available, that need to be there in a relationship for me to believe that I will stay long-term and that this will work out. These are the 10 things that I need from you. She goes, really? The 10 things that you need from me? And I'll never forget the way she looked at me. Again, confused, curious, intrigued, liked it, but didn't know if she liked it fully. And then I said, in our second date, I'd like you to answer your 10 deal breakers and tell me, even if you want to have a second date with me, tell me if these are the things that you're looking for. Tell me what you're looking for, and I'll tell you whether I could be that, do that, or commit to that as well. And I remember we did a second date and we had them. And I want you guys to know something. This part's kind of funny. To this day, we have those yellow pieces of paper in the safe, in our master closet. And when we were to have an argument, if it happens, we never argue, of course, but if it was to happen, I remember saying, do you want me to go to the safe? Do you want me to get what I agreed? And she says, oh, do you want me to go to the safe and see what you agreed? One of the things that I wish I never agreed to, which, gentlemen, if you're listening to this, be very careful what you agree to, because it was very important to me that I came through on the things that I said to her. And also it was very important to me that I hold her to the same obligations that she made to me. And one of the commitments that I made was that once a month for 1 hour, I would go shopping with her. And it's not the money. That's the easy part. The hard part is the time and the energy. And so once a month for 1 hour, I have to go out there and I sit outside the stores, and I can't be negative. I still have to put my best foot forward. But this is obviously me putting a little bit of humor on a serious subject, which is defining expectations. I don't care if it's expectations with your mom and your dad or your in-laws, expectations with your brothers and sisters, especially as you get older in your life. I don't care if it's your coworkers, the people that you work with. If expectations are not defined, that go both ways, by the way, both ways. Just because you're the boss doesn't mean that you may have the authority at your job position, but I believe that a great leader also follows through on the commitments that they expect their people to make as well. Nobody's a perfect leader. However, I don't believe in dictating to people exactly what they need to do, but you don't need to do the same thing. So this could be in a household, this could be in a church, this could be in a business. The definition of roles is so critical to the success of a relationship. Like in my business, we have different expectations in our office, and I'll just read them off really fast to you. In our office, we believe that you have to have a great attitude in order for all the relationships to work out, because we have customers, we have associates, we have leaders, we're doing business, and some people are going to have good days and some people are going to have bad days, but we've all agreed that we have to leave our negativity at the door and we have to bring in a positive attitude, because the actions of other people don't determine the way that we behave. Oftentimes, when we have a lack of discipline in this regard, and we've all done it, I know I've done it, you may have an argument with a coworker or your sweetheart, and it may be, well, I did that because you said, and I did that because you did. And that happens a lot. And I know that I've done it, immature, being very immature. I've done that as well. But I could tell you that at any time you could decide to start paying more attention to that and say, listen, I'm not going to be perfect, but I'm also not going to allow the actions of other people to determine my behavior. And so it's easier said than done, and it takes a lot of personal development, books, meetings, being around positive people to pour into you. But I believe if you read the Bible, I believe if you study personal development, I believe that if you attend seminars or meetings, or you hang out with people that are ahead of you of life, if you want to be a good parent, hang out with people that did a great job parenting, not just people that have kids. Just because they have kids doesn't mean they're a good parent. And just because you're married doesn't mean you have a good marriage. And just because you're a business owner doesn't mean you're good at it. And so I have to find people that have a deep, meaningful relationship with Jesus Christ and find out how they got there. I have to find relationships with people that studied our country, love our country, and know what our country stands for, so that they could speak intelligently about our country. I know it may be like, our country, yes. I believe in having a relationship with our country. I know that sounds a little bit different. It's not the same as having a relationship with a person, but I have to have pride and I have to have a dedication towards serving my fellow mankind and my fellow men and women that I live with in my community, because I believe that I can't operate my life in a silo. I believe if you're going to be a leader, that you have to pay attention to the needs of other people, and it can't just be about what you want and how to get what you want. That's one part of your life, but there's another part which is service to other people, and that takes a while to do that. I wanted to follow marriages. Sometimes people told me, I've been married for 35 years, and automatically people say, what's the secret? See, I don't go that far, because I don't know if you have a good marriage for 35 years. You may just be sitting in your house together and maybe you're miserable. But if you have a good marriage and you're spending time together and it's fruitful, and 1 + 1 = 3 instead of 1 + 1 = 2, and metaphorically, you know what I mean if you've been in a relationship, that's the whole point, is that the sum of the two parties is bigger than the sum of them by themselves. And that's something that I was looking for in all the relationships. I don't believe that somebody should have a ton of friends. They may be friendly. They may call somebody, oh, this is somebody that's a partner, and maybe they use the word friend. But I think when you really draw it out and you really define and you ask yourself a simple question, I think you'll find that the relationships that you have in your life are probably going to fit on one hand, maybe two hands. And I'm talking about real friendships. Friendships where you look out for one another and you work with one another and you tend to one another. That doesn't mean that you can't be cordial, respectful, and friendly to many different people. But I think you're going to, as you get older, I think you're going to have to get this list smaller and smaller. So our expectations working in our office is, number one is your attitude. Number two is the activities that we decide as a unit, what activities will add to the organization and which activities we don't need in the organization. Your attendance, making sure that you show up, and showing up is a really big deal. One of my original business mentors had show up on his license plate, and I'll never forget that, because he said, hey, showing up's half the battle. And, getting there is half of it. Doing it right is another 40%. And that last 10% is a dogfight. And I subscribe to that thinking. Number four is associations. Who you hang out with. Who you hang out with is a big deal. Who you turn to. If you get into an argument or if you have a dispute, who you call next matters in your relationship. If you're struggling or you're depressed or you have anxiety or you're feeling down about yourself, who you call matters in those moments. Rent and registrations. This is for my business. You don't need to get into those details if you're not in the business. Compliance, communication. These are really important things. And then qualifying qualifiers. Those last four items is more unique to my individual business. And if you're running a team or you're running a group, you need to kind of ask in your organization, what are those KPI? What are those most key performance indicators that'll help you win? But to wrap up today, I believe that everybody can have a great marriage. I believe everybody can have a great relationship with Jesus Christ. I believe that everybody can find the aspects of their country that they love. I believe that everybody can find a way to coexist with coworkers and groups of people that they may not always like, and maybe they don't spend a lot of time with, but they could put them in a category of I'll respect you, you respect me, and here's how we'll operate together. But I want you to cultivate deep, meaningful relationships that people pour into you, and don't live life by yourself. Living life alone leads to depression. It leads to fear, anger, frustration, there's bad behaviors, drinking, smoking, bad behaviors. And I think that if we focus on these deep, meaningful relationships, we could stay on track and do something great. Can't wait to see you guys being leaders for life. And on your pathway to being a better leader, a leader for life, we want to go ahead and subscribe to our channel if you like this content. Share it with others, leave a comment, like it. Let us know how we could help you be a better leader.